of the Nashua Board of Education. It is Tuesday, October 8th, and it is 6:01 p.m. And I'm going to start with the roll. I am here. Mr. Claffey?
Here.
Ms. Daniels-Williams?
Here.
Okay. And then we have Mr. Gray, Dr. Andrade, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Rodriguez. And Mr. Rodriguez, you're going to go first, right?
Good evening. Wow, this new sound system sounds great. So I'm presenting to the Finance and Ops Committee our proposed solution to upgrade our HPE, which is our server system that supports applications like Simple K, which is our keying application, and local other applications that we use in the district. So this system's, I believe, is 7 years old right now, so it's due for an upgrade. And so we solicited 3 quotes to replace our current system with HPE ProLiant DL360 Gen 11 servers. And these 3 quotes come from Bloom in the amount of $37,499.67, Intrasystems at $66,901.20, and IT Insiders at $57,176.40. We're going to go with Bloom. The reason why the quotes there's so much discrepancy in the quotes is when Bloom quoted us, they misquoted us, but they're going to honor their quote. So that's why it is lower. They would have been in around the area of IT Insiders, but they did say they misquoted us and they're going to honor that quote, so that's why we're going to go with Bloom. So we did have a conversation with them to make sure that it was in line with the other 2 quotes, and they said they were. So, and this is going to come out of budget line 91.1.99222.5.53628.
Okay, so I'm going to start by making a motion. A motion to approve the purchase of 3 HPE ProLiant DL360 Gen 11 and associated components quoted from Bloom in an amount not to, I believe it should say exceed, $37,499.67. And like you said, that's account 91.1 992225.53628. Can I have a second?
Go ahead.
Oh, Shwanda. Okay, thank you, Ms. Daniels-Williams. So now that we have the motion on the floor and the second, I have some questions. First of all, it says you need to purchase 3 of these, and I'm wondering where they're going to be housed.
Yep. So our main data facility is at Nashua High South. So it's dubbed the MDF. That's where all of our internet traffic and server environments are located. We have a backup site here at North, but those have been recently upgraded in 2022.
Okay, so right now, these are the only 3 servers that we'll need to purchase?
Correct.
For how long? Another 7 years?
Or 7, 8 years. The life is pretty good on these.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I was looking at the Bloom website and I saw that they offer refurbished computer equipment. I didn't know if that was anything you've considered, or could it be done in this case?
Not in this case. We usually, when we're doing a production environment, we like to buy brand new, and usually the warranties are better when you have a brand new equipment, because if you have a refurbished equipment, it's hard to tell if it's out of the box for a day, 6 months, you don't know what type of use. So it's sometimes the parts are swapped out in those cases. So those are called gray market buys. So not really black market because that's illegal, but the gray market buys are like refurbished devices. We typically stay away from those just because we don't know what we're getting. But when we purchase right from Bloom, which is a reseller for the manufacturer, Hewlett Packard, typically it's a very solid product.
Okay, have you purchased anything from Bloom before?
Yes, we have. We've purchased Chromebooks from Bloom before, in the past.
Have you had any issues with their customer service?
No, their customer services, they're very outgoing. Michael Manos, who's the account representative for the area, he's always reaching out, letting us know of any deals that are going on, whether it's Chromebooks, laptops, or networking or servers.
Okay. I think my last question is, I was wondering why this is coming from contracted services and not from a line like the one for computer equipment?
So with these, when we buy these devices, they usually come out with a service with it. So it's usually they help us install, and it's tough to break up like a PO like that. So typically when we buy equipment like this, it comes out of a contracted service.
So will they continue to come up if there's any problems or anything and to
Yep.
do maintenance on it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Do you guys have any questions?
I just had a small question on the dates. They'll honor this even though we're deciding on it after the expiration date.
What expiration date are you
The
seeing?
expiration is 9/30/2024.
Yep, they're honoring that as of that date. So they know that I explained the board process to them, how it has to go through subcommittee, and then it goes through full approval with the board later this month. So they're fine with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So then I guess if there's no other questions or comments, we'll go ahead with the vote. Anyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we have Mr. Smith.
Thank you and good evening. I have 3 items for consideration of purchase tonight. First is to replace 2, here a lisp sort of thing. Not sure that's the right distance from me. 2 floor machines for the North High School. They have been operating on machines that date back to the beginning of the school, so they're 20 plus years old. Definitely at the end of their service life, and one of them is not operating at this point. So there's 2 types of machines. One is a floor scrubber. It does exactly what that name suggests. It actually scrubs the floors. Anything that's stuck on the floor, this will pick up. The other one is a burnisher. So that's done on mainly VCT floors. So as you know, we put floor wax or finish down for sure in the summertime and occasionally during the year during vacation breaks. And this just brings up the shine and makes the floor look nice. What I didn't put on the memo here is they're actually being purchased from Cleanorama. We have a quote from them. It does says valid until 20 September, but they still will honor the quotes. Cleanorama also does all our machine maintenance, and they are a regional vendor that carries 5, 6 different lines of machines. So we worked with them and described what we needed and how much it had to be run, and they highly recommended the 2 machines I brought before you. Otherwise, it's not apples for apples. You're just looking for the machine at this point that you want. One of them has a really good feature in that it has a lithium battery, and those will last 3 times longer than standard batteries we use now. And that was the charger, I believe. So the recommendation is to purchase from Cleanorama the NSS Charger 2022 DB at a cost of $14,760.72, and the Timberlane SR26D Rider at a cost of $15,693.40 for the North High School. Funding will come from account 91.1.22.2620, 2199, which is miscellaneous equipment.
Okay, I guess I'm going to make the motion. So I make a motion to approve the purchase of an NSS Charger 2022 DB at a cost of $14,760.72, and a Timberline SR26D Rider at a cost of $15,693.40. And funding for these machines is account 91.1.222620.7199, which is miscellaneous equipment. And can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, so does anyone have any questions?
I did. I was wondering if the current scrubber is a rider, and if not, is there an advantage to getting a rider? Or scrubbers, I would guess.
Think if is it a rider or not. pretty sure it's a walk behind. It's self-propelled, so you're just walking behind it. Having just a small attachment that goes on this machine that you actually ride on, just kind of hitch on like a trailer. And then,
I was just, so maybe, do they even make the stand behind? I was just wondering if a stand behind would be any significantly cheaper.
this machine could be a stand behind. You just take away that little trailer and then you're walking behind it.
But the current machine doesn't have that feature.
Right, right,
Because it's 22 years old.
yes.
That's it.
Okay. Daniel Williams? Okay, so,
Can I just make one comment? I don't know if it matters or not. It looks like we're just missing an extra 9 at the end of the 71,999 miscellaneous equipment. Not
Thank
sure
you.
if it matters, but.
You're correct. That's
okay,
good.
thanks, I fixed it. So, let's see. My first question is, these two items, would you consider them wants or needs?
Definitely needs. I mean, they work on the floors every day, the scrubber's used every day. Burnisher, I don't know how many times a week they use it, but one of the machines it replaces is totally dead, and the other one's on its last legs.
So I'm not really too clear on how I was looking at the line item for miscellaneous equipment, and it says that 52% of this line had already been spent, and last year it was around 56% spent. So could you explain like the cycle of finance, like when things are purchased and stuff, and when we would expect to see big purchases?
Sure. So we developed the budget, 6 months in advance at least. We identify the machines that are pretty much at the end of their service life already. Some of them are actually already sitting idle. So that's where the priority scheme is. And in some cases, our priority scheme will change because a machine suddenly dies. And that's how we decide what gets purchased next. So our purchasing, some of it's done right at the beginning of the year, some of it gets spread through the year. This one could go either way.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. And the quote from Inventus about the battery, is that for this product?
Say that again,
There was a quote in our packet about a battery.
Yes, that was I was talking about a little bit before. It's the lithium ion battery. That's the one that will last 3 times longer than batteries have lasted heretofore.
And that's not a separate cost, right?
It's part of the cost. It's included.
Okay.
It comes with that particular machine.
Okay. Do you expect to need to purchase any more of this big equipment for any of the other schools this year, right now?
Not right now.
How long do you think these might last? 20 years again?
I wouldn't say 20, but 10, 15.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, do you guys have any comments or questions or anything? Okay. So, I'm going to make a motion. I already made the motion. Let's take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. We can go to the next one.
Okay, the next item, we have HVAC, which heating, ventilation, air conditioning, control contractors that help us maintain all the control systems in each school. We have 2 primary contractors that do that. One is Controls Technology, who does the majority of our schools, and then we have Siemens. Siemens is recommending a 3-year contract. This covers Amherst Street, Sunset Heights, Dr. Crisp, and the school administration building. Prior to this, it also included Bicentennial, but we've been weaning off of that, going towards Control Technologies. So that came off of this. Our cost this past year was about $19,000, a little over $19,000 for this. But again, we've taken the school out. So you can expect that in the Control Technology, there'll be an increase for the same reason. So we've worked well with this with Siemens. Amherst Street, that was installed around 1999. Sunset Heights, just 2016. Dr. Crisp actually goes back to their last renovation in the mid-90s. And the SAU building probably just as long. So the recommendation is approve a 3-year contract with Siemens Industry, Inc. for HVAC controls, maintenance at Amherst, Sunset Heights, Dr. Crisp, and the SAU building, year 1, $16,752, year 2, $17,696, and year 3, $18,648. Funding will come from account 91.1.22.2620.54.243, which is HVAC maintenance.
Okay, all right, so I'll make the motion. Make a motion to approve the 3-year contract with Siemens Industry, Inc. for HVAC controls maintenance at Amherst, Sunset Heights, Dr. Crisp, and the SAU building. Year 1, $16,752. Year 2, $17,676. And year 3, $18,648. Funding from the account 91.1.2620.54.243, HVAC maintenance. Second?
Second.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Claffey. Okay, so this is another thing that I had questions about with the financing, because I looked at this line 54243, and as of right now, it's already 73% spent. And for September, the month ending September 30th of last year, we had spent 0%. So I was kind of wondering why such a big difference. And
It all depends on the timing of when we do the 2 contracts. I mean, the controls technology contracts, over 150,000 annually.
okay,
So sounds like we've already done that one. And this is a much smaller contract. What I was actually doing, is I didn't do it before I got here, was figure out what percentage increase this was. It looks fairly small. 0.05, if I did that right.
so both years are a very small increase like that?
I just did the first one. I mean, they all look about the same.
Yeah, it doesn't look like a very big increase at all to me.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that? I think, so looking at just the financial reports that are included, we have $135,000 sitting in encumbrance. So I think that's why it's showing that we've already spent 73%, because a majority of it is sitting in the encumbered bucket. So we must have a purchase order or something against it. So I
Okay.
think that's probably why you're seeing the drastic increase year over year.
Is that $135,000 for the contract with the other HVAC maintenance company?
So that's what you've spent so far. And $135,000 is already sitting in encumbrance, so it must be against a purchase
So
order.
it'd be primarily these 2 would be the controls contract. But there may be some other things in there too, without
Correct.
looking at it.
Yep.
So if we go ahead and approve this, does that mean that there won't, I mean, do you know how much money will be left for the rest of the year? And will that be necessary? What other expenses do you see that is going to have to come out of this line?
So we only spend what we get budgeted. The major expenses in this line are for the 2 controls contracts. We also have contracts to maintain the 2 main generators at the 2 high schools. And finally, we have a contract to maintain the chiller units, which provide air conditioning for the 2 high schools. So those are all in the budget that we start with at the beginning of the year.
Are they all in pretty good condition right now?
They're decent. These are all maintenance contracts to make sure they stay in good condition.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that's great, thanks. Do you guys have any other questions?
I was just wondering about the annual increase. So I'm getting about 6% for the first, does that sound right? For the first year?
Yeah, 0.55, so 5.5.
So 5.5% each year, you think that's typical for the industry?
It's not far off. From industry to industry, the percentage will change. But we thought it was fair and reasonable.
And is this something that typically just doesn't go out to bid?
No, because each of those vendors have proprietary systems, which kind of locks us in with them.
Okay, all right, so everyone, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and next one.
Thank you. And the last one is for roofing assessments. So last month, I brought to you a recommended purchase to do assessments at 5 elementary schools. And we got the assessments, and we're currently bidding it out. I might add that the first bids I saw just today were significantly cheaper than what I told you. I think I told you 125,000, so we're probably in the 50, 60,000 range. So that's good news. One of you asked, are you sure, Mr. Smith, that all the other roofs are okay? So I answered yes, and I do believe that. As long as you maintain them properly, they'll be okay. Typically, a rubber roof will last 30 years if you maintain it. In between 20 and 30 years, the seams will start to split and things will happen to it. But those are repairable, which is what we're doing with those 5 elementary schools. So thinking about the other schools, Amherst Street roof is now about 24, 25 years old. The North High School, that's 22, and then the South High School is around 20. So this is a good time to do assessments to identify those little cracks or splits in the seams and that sort of thing. Sometimes the flashing. We've had a lot of problems, not very recently, but through the years at this school in particular. So to me, it's really cheap money to have an expert take a look at the roofs for us and tell us where the problems are, and then we can develop a plan to attack them. I originally had set aside in our deferred maintenance about $200,000 for all the roofing work. So we spent 9, I think, for the first assessments, and then if you say we spend 60, that's 69, 70,000. So there's more than enough money to do this assessment and probably address any issues that arise from it. So it's kind of the background. The proposed cost, I'll just read the recommendation for the motion. Recommendation to approve the contract with ARM Consultants for roof assessments for the 2 high schools, Amherst Street Elementary and Stello Stadium, for $16,402.24. Funding will come from the school district's deferred maintenance account. That's something to add after do with your motion.
Okay, yeah, so I'll make the motion. A motion to approve the contract with ARM Consultants for roof assessment for the 2 high schools, Amherst Street Elementary and Stello Stadium, for $16,402.24, funding from district's deferred maintenance account.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Do you have?
I'd like to speak to it too.
Okay.
So I guess I have a couple different questions, but I know that we just are looking at 5 schools before to look at the roofs, to do assessments. And my question then was, we had an offer to have all things assessed from the outside, and why weren't we waiting for that assessment? So when we did the budget in March, we talked to the city, and the city said that maybe they would possibly look into doing the assessment on all the schools, figuring out everything that was going on with all the schools. But we just approved to look at the 5 schools, and now we're doing 3 schools and Stello's roofs. So I was wondering why, so that's 8 different pieces, only 7 schools out of the 19, and then now adding Stello's. But if we could ask for help to look at these all together as one unit, why are we not doing that?
I had never heard that the city was looking to do our roof assessments for us.
That's I think she's referring to the facility study.
Yeah, there's a facility master plan that we want to do.
Right. So would that not include the roofs of these buildings? That's why I was.
These would feed that. In other words, the results from this study would be incorporated into that. There's a lot of studies we've done through the years that will feed that as well. So when you develop a facility study, they look at all your equipment, all your systems, like roofing is considered a system, and they'll tell you what the condition it's in, how long can you expect to last. I don't think there'd be much duplication of effort, because if we do it now, it's already been done. And one less thing they can charge us for to accept to put it on their spreadsheet.
But have we made any headway in that arena so that we can stop piecemealing it? Like now we're doing 7 schools plus Stellos, and I'm sure that all the schools need to. So that means that we'll have more of these contracts and independent people looking at the schools to add to something that was already proposed, like I said, maybe not approved or whatever. I'm just wondering why we're not like pooling our finances for that one area so that we can get it all said and done, instead of doing the 5 schools last week or last month, and then now doing these 3 schools in Stellos separately, so that we can have all that together all in one place so that we can make a cognitive decision.
So facility master plan has not been funded yet. That's the first thing. It's not been funded yet. The funds have not been provided for it. When and if it is identified, I have an RFP ready to go on the street. And then we can get that ball rolling. That ball will probably take a year, because it's not only looking at the facility, it's talking to the staff, it's talking to the public, it's talking to all of you. What's important to you? What do you want to see in your schools? It's not just looking at the bricks and the mortar of a school. It's what do you see for the future? What do you want your schools to look like? Are they all going to become bastions of technology? There's all sorts of different ways that could go. So it's really a different thing, and we had needs, particularly for the last 5 schools. We had needs now. They identified, if you read the study, there were leaks, potential leaks in all 5 schools. The reason I included these was these are the next oldest schools. Could I wait for the facility master plan? Maybe, but I don't think they're going to do the deep dive that a roofing expert is going to do, which they do on these studies. To really look at, they're not going to be experts in roofing necessarily. They can look at a roof and say, yep, that's how old it is. They can look at the record that we provide. Actually, we provide a lot of the information they use. But we went to the experts. They do this for a living. And I think it's absolutely the right way to go. The other thing I wanted to say after you made the motion was Stellos Stadium. You've heard the various things in the media about Stellos Stadium and the turf. And you had also approved an item in the capital improvement plan to replace the turf at Stellos Stadium and do a bunch of other things. One of those other things was potentially replace the roof. So before we put that in the contract, I want to make sure the roof needs to be replaced. It's 20 years old, 21 years old now, maybe 22. So like I said before, they can last 30 years easy. The roof that's underneath, you can picture Stellos Stadium at the stands, the grandstands. There's a rubber roof underneath there on top of what's now the locker rooms and the concession stands and whatnot. That's protected. The grandstands are protecting that. So that could potentially last longer, but I want an expert to come and tell me that. And it will also feed the project once we get that moving.
Oh, you could.
So I thank you for bringing up Stellos, because that's one of the things that I wanted to double check with you, Mr. Smith. Like, we've already approved that. That included part of the roof in that one. So as you're saying that, like, how long, if we approve to move this on to the board, because, we just give our piece and then it moves on to the board. If we do that, how long will it be before it carries out? Kind of just like Stellos was approved a couple months ago, and it still hasn't carried out into the community.
So Stellos, there's been a lot of discussion. In fact, we had a meeting with the mayor this morning. if the priority one there is to replace the turf, obviously, so we can play the games. Things like this to replace the roof, again, there's a host of other issues we want to address, can be done next summer. But I would tell the contractor that gets this contract, I want Stella's done first. So give me some results, in 3 weeks, and they can do that.
So this is just, again, consultants coming in to give us feedback on if and when we have to replace so this isn't the actual work again, this is someone to examine that aspect of it. So again, those are two different they may come back and say, Stellos needs to work now, but North and South high schools are fine for another 10 years. The other aspect of it, I just want to go back to the facilities study. Mr. Smith has been champion for the facilities study. He speaks with Alderman Dowd quite frequently to keep it on the Alderman's radar. That is a priority kind of moving forward. So that is something that we're looking for, and Mr. Smith is champion as well as Alderman Dowd to keep that on the radar. That's going to be a project that we need to go forward. So there is work, but it's it has been proposed, but it is still being championed, and hopefully it will get funded by the city.
I have a question about the Stello Stadium stuff, because we approved that, it was a while ago. And I didn't know, did the alderman turn it down, or has it not even come before them? Or where does that stand right now?
There's a meeting tonight, and they're voting on it.
Okay, all right, that's great. How come there was a delay?
It came in our capital projects. There was an item, again, from the city side where it wasn't a priority, or where it was in the priority list, and where the condition of the field was it in the spring to where it was now has drastically changed.
Did we do the inspection of the field, or did
We had a
somebody
third
else?
party.
The third party did it? We paid for it?
Park and Rec.
Park and Recs.
Okay.
So Park and Recs, just for the public, there's a bleacher inspection every year and there's a field inspection every year. So the field was inspected in the spring or as of July 1st. And they were recommending you're going to need a new field soon. But it wasn't like you need to shut it down. And then in October, we had it re-inspected. And at that point, they're like, you need to shut it down. So the Parks and Rec has been a great partner with us. They've been doing all the upgrade they can, but really out of an abundance of caution and before a student got hurt on the playing conditions, that was the recommendation. So it changed in 6 months. It was on the priority list. I think it was number 2 when we said, what do we need to improve? So it was on the radar.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times we vote on things here and then I don't ever think about them again. Then they come up and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? So thanks for answering my questions. So the thing that when I was looking at this for the ARM consultants, I was curious about how this contract compares to the one that we just did for the 5 elementary school roofs. And I couldn't find it in our records. I didn't know, do you know when we voted on that contract, or is it something that we didn't vote on?
You did vote on it, if not last meeting, then the meeting before.
Was that the meeting where the technology wasn't working?
I think so.
Well, I thought that we voted on the work that had already been done. Like we voted to make them the project manager, but I couldn't find the contract where we paid them to look at the roofs. Unless I'm misunderstanding, I'm sorry if I am.
Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we went ahead in last meeting, approved, it was roughly $6,500 to have them look at it and give us their opinion on the work that needed to be done.
Yeah, I'm a little tad fuzzy on it. I want to say we proceeded, it was below your threshold to approve
It was below the
things.
10,000?
It was below the 10,000,
Okay.
so we proceeded with it, I want to say a couple of months ago.
Okay,
Maybe even, it might have been year-end funds that we applied towards it.
all right.
And then we didn't get the results until late July. We
Does,
brought it forward to you in September.
is this one more because of the square footage of the roofs?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And do you have are there any more roofs that need to be inspected, you believe, this year?
This year,
Yes, I was just wondering why it was broken up the way it was, and I understand the 5 elementary schools were the first priority. And then, of course, these must be ones that you think are in better shape. But do you want to do more inspections of the remainder of the roofs this year?
I think that this is it for this year.
Okay, all right. And now,
Most of the schools have been addressed, in the last 10 years or so. We did portions of roof for Fairgrounds Elementary, Ledge, and Charlotte back in the early teens. Then, of course, Broad Street was a new roof, Sunset Heights was a new roof, the middle schools are all new roofs. So we're actually in pretty good shape.
could you, how often do you see these roofs needing to be inspected moving forward? Just because it said that, there's remedial work that needs to be done on them, and inspecting them often is good practice. And I didn't know, is this something that maybe every couple of years, every 10 years, and I wanted to make sure that all the roofs have been inspected within a good time frame, that we're not forgetting or leaving anybody out or anything.
I would think, first of all, one indicator that we need to do something with the roof is when water starts to come in. So that's a sure sign.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that in any of those other schools. I would say we're good for 5 years
Okay.
at this point. After we do those, the ones we've already done, we've got a pretty good handle on the roofs.
Okay. So now, either the ARM consultants, this wasn't put out for quotes or anything?
This was not.
Why is that?
It's our preferred vendor, somebody we've been using all along. We've been not married to them, but it's our vendor.
I know that you have guys that you work with all the time and everything, and you're comfortable with them, and they've done good jobs for the district, but I believe it's part of our policy to get quotes whenever we have a contract over $10,000. Moving forward, I hope that you can get the additional quotes. I know it's extra work for you, but I just want to make sure that we're doing stuff properly.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. We could say no. All right, so we're. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and vote on this. What?
I just said,
Oh.
but as far as doing the roof work, did I hear you say earlier that you're getting other estimates for that?
Yes,
For the construction of the roof?
correct.
This is just for the repair estimate?
Yes,
And this is the same company that did the other repair estimate, right?
yes,
So we'll be bidding out for the actual repair, which will be a heck of a lot more.
yes. The other thing I just want to add, because you kind of asked a question, I'm not sure I totally answered it. This should be it for the assessments. So if you recall from the 5 school assessments, they had recommendations that will get us through the next 2 or 3 years. But then probably maybe in year 3 or 4, we need to pay $1 million to replace a roof. So that was not included when I said 5 years. I'm just talking about the assessments.
Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you. That's good to know that the work is never done, right?
Right.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and vote on this. And all those in favor of moving it to the full board, say aye. Aye. Okay, so motion approved, and thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
It's nice to see you, as always.
Have a good evening.
You too.
I mean, it's 10,000, right? Under 10,000. This was 16,000.
Yeah,
So
close.
it's 6,000 over. I mean, I thought about asking that.
Yeah. Okay, are you ready, Mr. Gray?
I am ready.
Okay.
Where would you like to start? Do we want to start with the transfers or the financial report?
Oh, the transfer sounds good, actually.
Perfect. All right, so just a couple transfers in front of you folks. So we have the first one being 15,000. So this was to actually move some money out of contracted services into part-time wages. It seems like part-time wages was not, there was no line funding for that. So we did go ahead and move based off of needs. We did go ahead and move 15,000 out of contracted services that really should have been budgeted out of the gate into part-time wages. So that's why you see the $15,000 transfer.
Any questions?
So I thought do we have part-time employees now? Or I know that last meeting we approved a job description for a part-time, quarter-time employee, but do we have part-time employees at the district?
Yes, we do have some part-time employees here at the district.
Will this $15,000 cover that for the quarter? How long will it be until this needs to be replenished?
Yeah, they're hopeful that the 15,000 is supposed to cover for the year. I will keep an eye on it. If for some reason it's not going to, I'll do my best to make you aware ahead of time. But they were saying $15,000 should cover that part-time wage line.
Okay. Now, you guys had to decide where you wanted to move this money from. Could you talk about why decision was made to move it from contracted services?
So I think right now, based off of hiring needs, it doesn't make sense to pull it out of full-time wages, just because we're still early in the school year to hire. We all know contracted services, unfortunately, we're thinking are going to be over budget, just with some of the special needs positions that we are contracting out at this time. Right now it made sense to go ahead and move it out of contracted services because there's too many unknowns with the open positions.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Move over to the next one, if that
Sure.
works.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, go ahead.
Sorry, still trying to understand the flow. All right, so the next one, pretty simplistic. Just went ahead and moved some money, $1,395 in total, directly out of the principal's account into office supplies for shared instruction. And again, it's just technically with the 61 accounts, they didn't necessarily have to do a budget transfer. But I think in order to keep things clean, the secretary wanted to do it at the end of the report. You probably all know, but at the end of the year, everything kind of rolls up to the 61s or those first two digits. We kind of educated the secretary, hey, in the future, you don't have to do it, but when they're looking at their budgets individually, it's nice to kind of not see any negatives. So.
Okay. Yeah, I know Mr. Donovan was a big fan of transfers. He'd always talk about keeping it clean.
Yes.
So yeah, do you guys have any questions about these? Okay, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the transfer report for fiscal year 25 September. Second, anyone?
Second.
Okay, thank you. And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And now the September financial report, right?
Yes.
All right, so,
So I think just a couple things to point out from the financial report. There's quite a bit kind of sitting in that encumbrance bucket again. So if there's any purchase orders that have been pushed through on all categories, some of the expenses might look slightly higher than years past. Just going back to the HVAC maintenance stuff that we were just questioning, it's showing that there's been 73% of it spent at this point. And again, that's because 135,000 is sitting in the committed or encumbrance bucket. So a couple things, I guess, just to kind of talk about. I know last meeting we talked quite a bit about contracted services. I think, us as a district, we really need to focus on contracted services. Of course, if we can hire the staff ourselves, it makes the most sense. I think we will continue to monitor contracted services over the next several months to see kind of what the forecast might be come year end. But hopefully some of these open positions will be filled sooner than later.
Okay. I noticed that the contract services, that last month was like a huge, scary number of 235,000. And this month it's down to 165,000. And I was wondering why it's decreased by so much. Is it because they're back to school full time? Is it something to do with summer sessions or?
Yeah, so some of it probably was because of summer. We still have, if we're looking at the kind of 2-digit roll-up, just to make sure we're looking at the right report, contracted services is at the bottom of page 1. So to date, so far, we've spent about 27.65% as the roll-up in contracted services. I think when we look at the report from last month, that encumbrance bucket, again, was significantly higher than the 300,000 that's sitting there now. We've done some cleanup related to prior year's grants. Purchase orders have been closed if they were truly for fiscal year 24 versus 25. So I believe that's why you're seeing such a drastic decrease there.
So the line above that, people support services, it went, last month, the cost was 35,000, and this month it was 104,000, which seemed like a big change, and that says it's 85.77% spent. And I don't know, what is the difference between pupil support services and contract services?
You're going to test me now, for sure.
That's more the services directly related to special education.
Which one is the pupil support or the contract
Yeah,
services?
the 53614.
Yep.
Okay, so a lot of the contracts we approved earlier in the summer, are those, they're under contract services, not pupil support services, right?
Yes, so the pupil, and we could delineate that more and we could get, but there's a lot of pupil support might be like an applied EBC or a different agency, which is different than like the speech and language like contracts that we approved. So
I think with the pupil support services, again, it's showing 85% used, but we have over $1 million sitting in that encumbrance
Yeah.
bucket. I only keep pointing that out because the percentages, I mean, you don't want to ever spend more, right? And I think it's showing that we've spent 85%, but we really haven't. At this point, we've encumbered that money because we're anticipating to spend it.
I'm glad you pointed it out because I'm not a financial wizard, and anyone that knows that I'm dealing with numbers would be shocked and horrified probably. So there's a lot that I'll miss, and so that's good to know to look at that column.
Well, and I noticed the reports are slightly different too. So depending on which column, this column, it's like the third one through the end.
Yeah.
And then the other report, again, kind of the third one to the end, but it gets confusing sometimes. So.
Okay, anything else?
I don't think anything else from my side. I think, we're 3 months into kind of this fiscal school year. I think we just need to continue to kind of watch the spending, and we'll start to do some of the forecasting as we get to the January timeframe.
Yeah, so I looked at the total percent of money of our district operating budget that had been spent so far, and it's 17.8%. And last year at this time, it was 16.9%. So I think you guys are doing a good job. I think it's really close to what it was last year, which is good. And it's funny because like when I looked at some of the other ones, I was, the differences, I was a little bit concerned. Like the property services went up from 16% used to 22% used so far. And the other services is only at 10% used, but at this time last year, it was at 5.9%. But even though the percentage used are increasing on some of these, the total amount spent is still on track with last year. So that's really good. I wanted to ask a question about the special education transportation, because the cost for this year and the cost for last year are really, really different. And I know that Mr. Donovan talked about the bills coming due, and sometimes there was a big delay, and I didn't know if that was the case this year. Because last year at this time, we had only spent $30,000 in August and $0 in September, but this year we spent $297,000 in August and $170,000 in September. I didn't write the line down for that one, sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Sorry. I was going to say, I think it's the 55,691 line that you're questioning. Yep, it's special education transportation services. So some of the bills are lagged. I think that's why you're seeing August almost double what September is. The good news is we've only spent about 10% on that line so far this year. I know that line in regular transportation and tuition out of district were kind of the three big hitters last year as far as the overage. We're starting to see a little bit of grant support with some of the specific McKinney-Vento transportation. And I think last year some of that either went into regular transportation or special education transportation. So the bills, again, there's a zero in July because most of it came in August.
Okay, all right, that's cool, thank you.
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to ask about was the subscriptions. The subscriptions, I wrote that number down, 61830, I think. And it says we paid $306,000 in August. And I didn't know if the subscriptions are only paid once a year or if it's like for 6-month subscriptions for most everything.
Yeah, so from a subscription standpoint, those are, almost think of like your online books.
Yeah.
Comes out of that bucket from an IT standpoint, and of course, to ensure that we're ready for the school year, I would expect that line to be pretty high in kind of July and August timeframe, right? So that we're ready for school. That should be annual subscriptions that we have to pay for like some type of ebook or whatnot.
So we won't expect to see another really big amount like halfway through the school year. That's good.
I wouldn't think so.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I think it's... I think that's it. Thank you. We need a motion to approve this, I believe.
I think we do that every meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna make a
I'm not
motion.
positive.
Well, we'll do it if we don't have to. I'll have to ask Tara at some point. Can I make a motion? I'm gonna make a motion to approve the fiscal year 25 September financial report.
Second.
Thank you. And any other questions or comments or anything? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we're all in favor. And thank you. Thanks for answering all my questions.
Of course, happy to help.
Yeah. Do you want to make the motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. And
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we're adjourned. Thanks. Oh. adjourned at 6:55. Thanks.